Thank you for joining us today for the Keynon Lake Show. We know you will be empowered as you consider the content shared by Mr. Keynon Lake, co-host Marcus Select, and our guests. For more information about Mr. Keynon Lake, please visit www.mydaddytaughtmethat, and feel free to email us at lake@mydaddytaughtmethat.com. Books can be ordered from Mr. Lake by calling 828-582-2261. Until next time, you've been listening to the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Welcome to the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Keynon Lake is the author of the book My Daddy Taught Me That, published by Welcome, a social worker and activist. You can like this show's fan page at www.facebook.com/The Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Feel free to post any comments, questions, or requests for his book on the fan page. Now let's go into the studio with your host, Mr. Keynon Lake, and co-host Marcus Select.
What's going on, Mr. Lake?
How you doing, Coach? How you doing, Coach?
Hey, we're doing real good. Real good, man. How you doing?
Good morning, everyone. To all the listeners, to all the followers out there, good morning and welcome to another episode of the Keynon Lake Show.
Yes, man. We just sure appreciate you, man, and shout out to all the kids that you're working with there in Asheville, North Carolina, and shout out to all the moms, man, who are really doing it big and trying to hold it down, you know?
Exactly, Coach. Exactly, Coach. I'm doing fine this morning, Coach. It's a beautiful day here in Asheville, North Carolina. The sun is going to be shining today, but I had a funny episode happen to me this morning, Coach. I want to share with the crew real quick.
Okay.
We over the last 3 weeks now, since the weather's starting to change, it's really funny how this is happening because it'll happen on a Saturday or a Sunday, and it'll happen around the same time every morning. I'll get woken up around 7:30 in the morning by a woodpecker knocking on my back. I have a screaming back porch, a deck. And a woodpecker is knocking on it. It's crazy. It's like it happens around 7 o'clock, 7:30 every morning, but it only happens on the weekend.
Okay.
So I've been trying to figure out how this woodpecker has the internal clock to be here at the same time every Saturday and Sunday. So this is really funny how it is always waking me up. But
that's what's up. Hey, I had one knocking on the studio once. We were in a recording session, and so we started banging on the studio wall. You know what I'm saying? So like, hey.
Well, hey, Coach, it's funny because, like I said, every morning when these things happen, you'll try yelling in the house, but it doesn't work. So I have to run outside on the back porch to get this thing to leave. So,
yeah. Yes, sir. Yes.
But today, Coach, getting started with the show, I wanted to talk about what I like to call a planned, flawed system.
Okay.
And what that is, Coach, and that's a name that, of course, I created. But with my line of work, dealing with youth, young adults, dealing with parents, families, the whole shebang, I run across a lot of youth, a lot of men, primarily, and when I talk to them, they always talk to me about, oh man, the system is flawed. The system is set up against us. So I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get mine, and this, that, and the third.
Right.
And I want to talk about what I've learned over the past several months about the system, and also the way that we can not beat the system, but be better for it, and make sure that we're taking care of our youth and children.
That's what's up.
All right, so here we go, Coach. So first of all, I want to talk about this article that I read. And a lot of times when I read articles, Coach, I go back and I do research.
Mm-hmm.
This article I read was probably back in maybe October and November of 2012. And it talked about third grade test scores. Now, actually, it was two articles. One article talked about when third graders do their end-of-year testing, their reading scores whatever the reading scores are, that's what they determine the following year, how many prison cells they're going to build.
Wow.
Now, one article talked about they take these test scores from only the boys in the third grade, and then another one said all third graders. So, but as I've done more research about this, I started finding more and more information about it, and it's turning out to this is true. At the end of the year, they take third grade test scores, and they base it on the reading levels, which is what we talked about last week with the education.
Right.
When I was talking about, the kids not being able to read. So they're identifying young children at the earliest of third grade to build prison cells for those that can't read. So they already know in their mind, apparently they've done studies, and that if a child can't read by the third grade, then that child is going to be a problem, and they need to make more jail cells for that child.
Wow, Keynon, that's big.
That is big. So that's one thing. The other thing, Coach, is this whole system, and let me talk about that now. We've all heard about the radio industry, and well, not the radio industry. Let me rephrase that. The music industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been theories about the Illuminati runs it, and people, and this and that, and all that kind of stuff. But then, listening to that, who knows? I'm not in the music industry, so I have no idea what goes on. I read an interesting article. This was probably about a month ago,
mm-hmm.
and it was from a unknown source who wanted to be unknown because they were fearful of their life. Well, apparently, he was a top mogul in the music industry back in the early '80s, like 81, 82.
Right.
And he apparently went to this private meeting. But what they talked about at this private meeting, after they had them sign disclosures that they would never discuss this,
mm-hmm.
was how the music industry was going to get into private-owned prisons and get stock in private-owned prisons.
What?
So, yes. So this is what the article said: how the music industry was going to get stock in privately owned prisons. So what this meeting was about, and see, of course, in this article that I read, the man who wrote it said that they were dumbfounded. They didn't know what the music had to do with prisons, this, that, and the third. Well, what they wanted to do, according to this article, was target rap music. At that time, rap music was getting bigger, and so they wanted to target rap music to push gangster rap to create an avenue to where they would have or can create an institution for getting more inmates to fill these privately owned prisons.
Wow, you don't say.
So the guy who wrote this article said he sat back
mm-hmm.
for almost 30 years because he ended up leaving the music industry 2 years after this. His life had been threatened, and he actually wasn't even from America. He was from overseas, so he moved back to his home country. But he said, he saw what's been happening with the rap music and how he blamed rap music for pushing an agenda that basically filled up our prisons with young black males primarily. Now, that's another thing. Let me now. The reason I even mentioned the whole topic was because I did some research about this whole privately owned prison system.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that our jails are overrun, are crowded.
Right.
There's been talk for years about the strict drug charges that primarily young African Americans have to deal with to get sent to prison.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how this all is going to start to come around here in a second, Coach. I know we're going to take a break here in a few minutes, but dealing with this prison system, when a young man does a crime and goes to jail, primarily a drug crime, these charges are, I don't want to say trumped up, but the legislatures probably have made these charges more severe so they can send them to prison because there's no rooms in the jails.
Right.
Well, there's no rooms in the prison no more either. And when I was reading about privately owned prisons, this is happening all over the country where the state run prisons and the locally ran prisons are starting to sell out to these privately owned organizations. Now, we've learned, and I've learned over the last probably year or so, that Walmart, the Walmart that we shop at, is one of the biggest builders of prisons in America.
Wow, you heard it here first, man. Oh, my goodness.
So, Walmart builds prisons. So this is how this is going to start to come along. I just received an email yesterday, and I'm going to read this to you here, Coach, and real quick before we go to break. The article that I received yesterday says, "Give me 5 action alert," and it talks about how in the state of North Carolina, the House in this Bill 217 would allow prosecutors to charge any 13 or 15-year-old as an adult if that child is charged with the B1 felony. So they're starting to now they're trying to make so when they can put children as early as 13 in prisons with general population.
Wow.
And that's here in the state of North Carolina. This is a bill that they're actually debating about and trying to either pass or deny, but it's on the table to see if it's going to be approved.
Man, this is like crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I want to be able to tie this together, Coach. So are we about to go to a commercial?
Yeah, we're going to go to a commercial break, and then we'll come right back, man, and continue on.
All right, Coach.
All right, stand by.
We trust that you are enjoying the show. Stay right there. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, my name is Marcus Sillette, and welcome to your technology update. Today we want to talk a moment about how you can access the services of SIBN Television and Radio Network. For many of you, you may not know that we offer graphic designs. As you proceed online, pictures say what you often don't have time and room to say. Allow SIBN Television and Radio Networks to design the graphics, particularly banners, for websites such as Spreaker, Facebook fan pages, and beyond. SIBN Television and Radio Networks also offers audio production. For those of you that need lead-ins, lead-outs, bed music, and beyond, perhaps you're also looking for consultation on how to start an internet project, such as a radio program, and beyond. Access SIBN Television and Radio Network's expertise in digital programming online. And lastly, keep in mind that SIBN Television and Radio offers video production services for your specialty needs as you continue to further your projects on the web. To take advantage of these services and so much more, contact us via our website, www.sibntelevision.com. Fill out a contact form and someone from the staff will return your call as promptly as possible. Or email us at globalcoverage@selectusatv.info. SIBN Television and Radio is powered by Select USA TV. Google the name Select USA TV, increasing your visibility online.
All right, Mr. Keynon Lake. We're here with the Keynon Lake Show, you guys, on SIBN Radio. Mr. Keynon Lake from Asheville, North Carolina, in the house, author, activist, and simply put, legendary in trying to make sure that our children have a legacy. How about that? Legendary to have a legacy. How about that?
I love that. All right, Coach. Well, getting back to this this whole private prison articles and research that I've done. Now, people out there may be saying, okay, so what's wrong with, private organizations or corporate organizations owning prisons? Well, this is what's wrong with that. when you have private organizations, corporations that own prison systems, they have to make money.
Right.
And that money comes from the inmates that they have inside that prison.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, like any business, like, for example, let's just use a grocery store or a mall.
Mm-hmm.
The more people who shop at a mall and spend their money, the more money that mall's going to make, the better that business is going to grow, and they'll be happy. The same thing applies when it comes to these private organizations, these corporations owning prisons.
Mm-hmm.
These prisons and jails need to be filled.
Right. Or else they'll lose money.
Exactly. So just like anything else, they have to find a way to make their business grow.
Right.
So that in turn gives these private organizations, these corporations, the power to lobby our legislatures, our Congress about making different policies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you get these policies like bills like the 13-year-olds being charged as an adult. You know, you get bills like you get different strategies and plans done to where it causes, or it's like a cause and effect. I'll get this done, which will cause this, which ultimately will affect these people going to prison, or this person going to jail, or this person going to prison because X, Y, Z.
Well, not only that.
So what do you think about that, Coach?
Well, you know, I was going to say not only that, Keynon, but like I said, this show is going to be very unique going forward, because it sounds like to me that not only are you bringing solutions to the issues that we may be facing in our communities and families, immediate families and communities, but you're also bringing real-time information that will help parents remember that this fight does not stop. And I was going to say earlier that the predictions, or the what do you call that when you have a forecast? The forecast for these companies are true. They are true that statistically, children who are at risk, particularly between, I want to say 8 and 9 are your formidable years, and then when you get into your preteen years, those are the years between 8 and I want to say 12, where kids have to have some formality or some regiments of some kind, whether it be, you know, some Boy Scouts, or whether it be, you know, Navy Sea Cadets, Civil Air Patrol, whatever. And so if you're not providing a regiment that will reinstitute the values and the ethics that kids need to be able to have once they go into teenage years, what happened is that forecast that those companies are making comes true. They tend to have not only more criminal activity, but they tend, because of the nature of today's market musically and on and on and on, they tend to be involved in more felony type criminal activity. So you are right on, and I really want the listeners to weigh in, and we want to ask our listeners the number one question. Did you know this information that Keynon Lake is sharing on the Keynon Lake Show today? Did you know that Walmart has a great hand in building prisons? Did you know, or do you understand the what do you call it, Keynon, when you privatize the prison system versus having a public prison system? You see them? Do you think that the average people know that, Keynon?
I don't think so. You know, I don't think that everyone knows that. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and she had no idea. She was actually very shocked about the fact that third grade reading test scores determine the number of prisons built the following year. So, you know, but wrapping this part up and bringing this around, Coach, you are exactly right. Let's just say everything that I spoke about is 100% accurate and true. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Third grade reading test scores are used to build prison system jail cells the following year. The music system is involved with pushing an agenda to, particularly with the rap music, to get more criminal activity involved, to get more people put in prisons and jails. And private-owned prisons, corporate-owned prisons have an agenda to make money, which means they have to get more people in jail. And also, let me just say this too, I forgot this. not only when you deal with privately owned prisons, as far as inmates, they have another option to do. For example, we see inmates on the side of the road cleaning up the road and doing that. That's even more. That's another way that they make money. As far as the prisoners who are in prison, they lobby their services out and basically sell those services to the state to do things to clean up and stuff. So it's terrible all the way around. It's terrible all the way around. But once again, let's just say this is 100% true and all this stuff is happening. Well, you know what? So what? I mean, is it right? No. But is it something that can possibly happen? Yes. But once again, Coach, just like you said, the way that we beat this, the way that we deal with this, is we educate and teach our children the right way.
Right. That's right. And, you know, the thing about it, Keynon, and that's what we want to bring this back around to two things. We want to bring this back around to why they need to purchase this book. Because this book that you wrote, My Daddy Taught Me That, is not just a read on how to improve your family and how to be a better parent or a better citizen, community resident, but it is also giving you key statistics, hardcore statistics that point to patterns that, you know, I want to say these corporations are building algorithms around these pattern behaviors, and they can predict 3, 5, 10, even 12 years out certain profitability measures based on the behavior patterns that they think that we as parents will not change. And so when they order this book, and we're going to tell them where they can order it, they're not ordering just a read on self-improvement or self-help or something like that. They're also ordering a book that has an author that has, as you're doing on the show today, researched the latest statistical behavioral pattern outcomes, I'll just call it that for now, that will point to the profitabilities of these corporations that you're talking about. And so when they order this book, not only are they supporting, and that's what they're counting on you not doing. Keynon, I don't want to be funny here, but they're counting on people not reading. They're counting on us not getting involved. They're counting on us to just check this show, for instance, and not actually order the book, ask questions, inquire, send some emails, dig deeper. They're counting on that because they have proof, statistics that show that, you know, we even as adults, we're more prone to pleasure, more prone to entertainment, more prone, you know, I can go on and on and on about that. But the second thing is the program that you have there in Asheville, where you're working with these young boys. I want you, before we close out, I want you to real quick talk a little bit about how your work ties into the solution to these problems.
Well, this is the way my work ties in, Coach, and I'm glad you said that, and thank you so very much. My program, My Daddy Taught Me That, once again, it's a men's development program where I work with young men ages 12 through 19. We have men discussion groups twice a week, and then we have extracurricular activities, what I like to call life-changing events, every other weekend of the month. Mm-hmm. But the way that this ties in, Coach, is the same information that I'm talking about on my show now. Mm-hmm. I take it to a classroom, and I talk to my young men about it.
Right.
We have real-life discussions about, like, for example, the why the government the government spends $40,000 to $80,000 on investing in prison systems and only $8,000 in education.
Right.
We talk about future endeavors, like what is your life going to be like in 5 to 10 years? What plans do you have? So, I mean, the main thing that I do with my young men is I'm honest, I'm open with them, but I keep it real with them.
Right.
And we have real-life discussions that's going to really not only keep them thinking, but hopefully make them make educational, better decisions when they leave my classroom. When they walk out that door, they can say to themselves, you know what? We learned something today, and this is something that is real, and we need to do something about changing it and not continue to go in the direction that we were going in.
Well, part of the problem, though, Keynon, is that without the parental involvement, and let's just put it on the line for what it is.
You are right.
Without that parental involvement, and we know that parents out there are struggling with a lot of things. They're struggling with high unemployment, employment retention, being able to stay on the job. They're struggling with a stagnated income rate, whereas the hourly rate for those that are working by the hour has not risen in the last several years. They're struggling with health issues. They're struggling with lack of community resources. They're struggling with a deterioration of their former communities, for that matter, through development and other more citywide, statewide plans to move and migrate a people from a community to more controlled environments so that they can have development for their venues, entertainment, make more money through those venues. So we know that the parents are up against a very serious struggle. But here's what the Keynon Lake Show, and correct me if I'm wrong, will not accept. We cannot do this alone. We cannot do this alone. Keynon Lake, myself, and others of you that are listening to us via radio, you are our soldier in this fight. And we need our parents to be encouraged, to understand these statistics are real, to get involved where they can. In other words, if a child is developing and can improve, then the parent must develop and improve. Keynon, do I have it right? Yes. They must also say, I can do better. It can't just be the child, even though we hope, we pray, you know?
Coach, you could not be more right. And that's one of the biggest barriers that I face in dealing with the work that I do.
Yeah.
For example, Coach, dealing in the system with, as far as like social work and working for county government and stuff like that, you know, to give Buncombe County a lot of credit, we have a lot of good programs. We have a lot of good, you know, I would say, startup foundations that really target to help communities.
Right.
But what we're faced with is families and parents who don't take advantage and don't get involved.
Yeah, that's
exactly right. You have to. First of all, you could have made it more clear, Coach. For all those who are listening, for all those who can help and are in empowering positions, you definitely need to stand up and help communities and help families out. But it also has to be on the families as well to take advantage of these opportunities to get involved and be informed, because we're on every level. If you're not, you can go as far as technology. You know, they're doing different things with that. As far as learning what's happening in your communities, what's happening in this country, if you don't stay on point and take advantage of these things, you'll wake up one day and be in a world that you won't even recognize.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I want to go back real quick because we don't have but like a minute and a half left. I want to go back and tap on this reading thing. The problem with reading for our third graders is this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a you know, a basic point here. Reading must also include bonding at that age. Reading and bonding go together. In other words, it's not up to your child to read at the third grade level. You have to read to your child. You have to read to your child, and you get several benefits out of that. One, the child learns to read from hearing words read. But two, more important than the first, and what would make the child come back for more reading, is the bonding that takes place when an adult or a parent reads to a child. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like in AA, they say, you know, you got those who aid in the bed to help people drink, you know. Well, you have to aid in the bed your child's education. You know what I'm saying, Keynon? I'm out of time,
once again, man. You nailed it. Once again, you nailed it, Coach. You are absolutely right.
Hey, we got to run, Keynon. We out of time, man. Thank you so much, man, for bringing this information, man. And people can tune in. We're going to skip a week, but they can tune in and follow. Give me your Facebook and your Twitter real quick, Keynon.
Follow me at the Keynon Lake Show. That's on Facebook. And also the KL Show at Twitter.
That's what's up, man. Keynon, man, stand by. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. The Keynon Lake Show right here on the SIBN Radio. You have been tuned in and you have been queued up. Now it's your move. What will you do? We'll see you next time.
joining us today for the Keynon Lake Show. We know you will be empowered as you consider the content shared by Mr. Keynon Lake, co-host Marcus Select, and our guests. For more information about Mr. Keynon Lake, please visit www.mydaddytaughtmethat, and feel free to email us at lake@mydaddytaughtmethat.com. Books can be ordered from Mr. Lake by calling 828-582-2261. Until next time, you've been listening to the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio.
You're listening to SIBN Radio on the Select USA TV iBroadcasting Network. You're listening to SIBN Radio.